All right, I think we can start already. We are live everywhere here on the webinar platform and also on our YouTube channel. So welcome to our webinar. My name is Olena Gryniuk. I'm the CE Director at the SME Banking Club and from this year also founder and director at the VOA Digital. And this is a platform where we promote and develop the digitalization of receivable finance and build an active community of experts eager to drive this change in the industry. So thank you very much for joining. This is actually our second webinar within VOA Digital project. And yeah, we speak about digital factoring. And today our topic is combating double financing fraud. Let me introduce my guests today. Ognjen Kurtic, co-founder at Serbian factoring fintech called FinSpot, and Vladimir Đorđević, senior advisor at the Financial Institutions Committee at the Serbian Chamber of Commerce. Ognjen and Vladimir, welcome. And thank you for sharing your experience and readiness to share your experience here. And just before we go to the topic, let me very shortly mention organizational moments. So we plan our webinar for 40-45 minutes. We start from the presentation, and after that, we will have a Q&A session. And you are welcome to type your questions here in the chat. Please type them as soon as you have them, and I will read all of them, and we will answer your questions in the second part of the webinar. And yes, we are recording this webinar, so right after we finish, you will receive the link to the video and the presentation itself. So let's go to the topic, prevention of the double finance fraud. We all know that all the factors encounter that kind of frauds, and everybody has implemented some anti-fraud solutions on place. But the centralized, I would say, the centralized platform, centralized solution, and the first example is coming actually from Serbia, and Ognjen will share their experience in FinSpot with this kind of fraud, and also the experience of creation of the Whisper platform, which is a centralized one hosted by the Serbian Chamber of Commerce, and allowing all the factors on the market check in real time whether the invoice was already financed or not. So, Ognjen and Vladimir, I'm passing the word to you right now.
Thank you so much, Olena. Just please confirm that you can hear me well.
Yes, we can.
Cool. So I'm sharing my screen. Thanks so much for the opportunity to present what we did in Serbia. I'm really happy to be able to talk about it. So we structured the webinar in the following few steps. We first want to talk about the actual fraud attempt. So as Olena said, we are FinSpot. We're working as a licensed factoring company in Serbia. And we were subject to many different fraud attempts, but one of them was special in a way that it actually provoked us to build this tool. We're going to talk the idea what the solution is, and then we'll cover how did we manage to implement it in Serbia on a national level. We'll talk about traction and end with just some of the main points of why Whisper is interesting as a solution to prevent this type of fraud. And as Olena mentioned, we'll have room for questions afterwards. Let's dive right in. So it was in September 2022. At that point, we were operating for almost 2 years on the market, and we started as an extremely technology-driven lender. We were employing various techniques to be able to prevent fraud, because we were aware from the get-go that fraud is the main source of risk, to put it like that, in factoring and invoice financing. So we integrated with one fraud prevention tool that already existed in the market, that was monitoring accounts for fraudulent activities. We were doing advanced techniques such as machine fingerprinting, IP tracking, when we requested invoice verification. And all of these barriers were set in place, like layered defense, exactly to avoid frauds, successful frauds on our platform. And despite all of this, we just in September get an email adapter who just says, what's up with this invoice? I already paid it to the other factoring company. We realize there is a problem, contact this other factoring company, and we realize that actually this invoice has been financed on the same day twice. So given all the things that we put in place to fraud, it was just obvious that you cannot depend from this kind of fraud unless everybody works together on the market, right? And that's like, as we are most engineers, and then we always try to attack problems from that side, from the technology side. It was obvious, yeah, we need a platform where everybody can communicate in real time. But then that immediately implies a problem is that would mean that everybody is sharing sensitive information, right? You're sharing your client information, how much are you exposed, how much do you finance, and these things, which it's no-go, nobody would like to do that. And then we realized that we can actually solve this problem of sensitive business information sharing through the use of hash functions. And now I'm going to scare you just a little bit with technical things, but I think it's, if you just follow through, it's quite important, and I'm just going to be very careful in how I present this. What is a hash function, basically? So a hash function is just a function that takes any kind of input, right? And then it transforms it into an output. And I'm just going to show you an example here. It's really handy for presentations. So my input here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'm just going to apply a specific hash function to this input. And what comes out is some kind of random string, right? Array of characters. And now, why are hash functions so interesting for this problem is that whenever you have the same input, it's always going to produce the same output, right? So if I take and change only a single number here, it's going to produce something completely different. If I can turn an 8 here, it's going to return to the same previous character that was there. So for the same input, it always produces the same output, right? And if there is a slight change in it's going to produce a completely different output. And the third most important part for the hash function for this problem is that out of this text, you can never go back to this input. There is no mathematical way that you could do that. I mean, you could if you have like 1 million years and all the computing power in the world to work on the problem. So physically, it's just not possible. So now going back to the solution, we realized that there's essentially a solution, and our solution is actually Whisper, which is a tool that basically takes this main information from invoice, produces a single string out of that, and then it hashes that string, which gives you something that we call the fingerprint. So it just gives you a random set of characters that can be used as a fingerprint on the invoice of the document of the invoice. And then only this fingerprint is what leaves the system of the factoring company, bank, whoever is doing the check. So what Whisper instance is doing, it's just comparing if there are duplicates of these fingerprints that already exist in the instance. And if there is a match, if there is a duplicate, this means that this invoice has been financed. Because these fingerprints are irreversible, it means that whoever is producing the fingerprint is not leaking any kind of sensitive information outside of its system. I'm going to show you a quick demo of how this actually works. I'm going to use the test environment of the Serbian Chamber of Commerce. And just quickly to take you through the UI. So the API key here is what each factoring company gets. That's your unique identifier, right, through which you authorize. And then in your browser, you can input the data of the invoice that you want to check. It's important to note that you don't need to do this manually. You can do this through API integration and so on. But for the purposes of the demo, I'm going to do that manually. So what we do in Serbia, and this is subject to change for different markets, is we provide the supplier and buyer IDs, company ID numbers. We provide a number of the invoice. Let's say XYZ. True. We take the dates. Let's say it's 1st of March, and then it's end of March, and then you provide the amount, right? The last field here is integration with the e-invoicing national platform that exists in Serbia, but it's, for the purposes of this demo, I don't need to go in there. So you input as an invoice financing company, this is an invoice that you plan to finance, and you can just click on check. Sorry, I just need to input 8 numbers here. Just give me a sec. So this is now 8 and this is now 8. Sorry for that. And what happens is what I showed you previously with the hashing. So this combination of parameters is being hashed locally in your browser. So it does not leave to any kind of server or anything like that. And it produces the signatures or the fingerprints. What's important to note is that there are multiple signatures here, because what we are trying to do, we are trying to catch various variations of data that can be submitted by the fraudster, right? I'm going to show you an example just in a little while. So if I'm FinSpot and I check the invoice, I verify that in the Whisper instance nobody has these signatures, which means that I can finance it, and I can upload the signatures to the Whisper instance, so that if anybody else checks the same combination, they would get a notification that there is a potential fraud. And I'm going to show you just how that works because I prepared another invoice previously. So we're going to see how the duplicate looks like right now. I'm just typing in the invoice information, typing in the dates, they're good. And the amount should be like this. If I check this invoice for duplicates, I see that somebody already provided the same signatures to Whisper instance in Serbia. And it tells me that based on the 4 signatures that were created, all 4 are matched as duplicates. And only at this point, you get the contact information of the other factor who already financed this invoice. So this is the point where you would contact them and you would check if this is really an attempted fraud, or maybe it's some kind of miscommunication, or maybe just some false positive. Now, different signatures. So signature 1 is the one that takes all the data, and if it's red, meaning that every field on the invoice is the same, right? So it's obviously a fraud. But then we want to cover the cases where, for example, fraudster would just change the invoice number, right? So just by an example, I'm just going to add a dot here. And if I check for duplicates now, I can see that only signature 2 is a match, because what signature 2 does, it takes all the data from the invoice apart from the invoice number, meaning that you can catch even situations like this. The other signatures are there also to catch different variations. If we ignore the amount, if we ignore the dates, we can catch these differences. And when I have a red warning, I can contact the factoring player who already financed this invoice, and I can check if there is an issue, there is a real issue. Apart from doing this manual upload, you can also do it in Serbia through a file upload. So from your system, from your platform, you can just export all the invoices you want to check. Or what's most preferable, you can just integrate via an API, meaning that you have real-time protection against these types of fraud. Let's just jump right in, and then we'll during the questions we can cover if there are any questions related to the demo. So we had a fraud that happened in September. We immediately implement a simple POC just to test if this can work, and we discuss internally what's the best what's the best way to propose this on a national level, because you want to have as much players as possible to be best protected, right? And we realized that because there is a factoring association, there is a section for factoring under the Serbian Chamber of Commerce, that maybe that would be a good place to start. And this is how we come to the Serbian Chamber of Commerce, to Vladimir and his team, and propose them the POC, which then leads us to have a meeting in the factoring association, and Vladimir can give a little bit more overview of how things went from there.
Thank you, Ognjen, for this introduction. I don't know, what do you know about the Serbian Chamber of Commerce? The main point, which is very important here, is that in Serbia, being a member of Serbian Chamber of Commerce is mandatory for all the legal entities. So we cover everybody, and our factoring associations is established some 15 years ago, and literally every legal entity that includes and bank and factory companies who are working in this field are members. So, as Ognjen said, our association was a perfect point for discussing this technical solution for the problem. We had a first meeting in October, at the end of the October, when Ognjen and his team presented the problem and the solution. Unfortunately, I can say that members of the association were familiar with the problem. It's not so big in number of attempts of the frauds, but even a one fraud can make you very big problem in the cash flow of the company. So I can say that all the members of the associations were very interested to discuss further steps, and in less than 30 days we formed a test group with a number of banks and factory companies which can they start in beta testing to make this proposed technical solution applicable and better. And they finished their job in January, and they presented it to the other members, and we were very satisfied with the results. And that then our next step was how to solve the legal issues, because as you know, banks are very complicated organization, and compliance in banks is very strict. And we had some 2 or 3 months of very intensive work of how to prepare a legal framework which can be satisfied for everybody included. So we presented that solution in March, and from March till June, we had a period of compliance teams in banks and factory companies, how to say, preparing to sign the contracts. And from June, we started with the production. So from now on, we had almost every bank and factoring company in Serbia involved in a legal process, and some 50% are already putting their invoices in the system. So Ognjen, here it says that thousands of invoices have been checked. I had the exact number for last 6 months. We have about 4,000 invoices checked, and good news is that we didn't have any match since now, but we are waiting for the first potential fraud to be stopped. That's regarding my point in this, my role in this project. But if anybody had any questions, I will be very happy to answer it on the end of the presentation. webinar.
Cool,
So,
thanks.
Ognjen, back to you.
Thanks so much. Maybe just to add, the process was extremely fast, given that you have, like, at the moment we had 19 or 20 of factoring players in the whole market. And what we did good together is that we tried to involve everybody from the get-go. So from the proposal, we asked all of them what do they think about the solution, what's the feedback, and how to make it better together. And this is how we came to the idea to build a test group. And this test group was then exchanging ideas on how to do it, and what to do, for example, if there is a duplicate, who to inform, or which types of signatures to cover for the invoices and things like that. All of
yes,
this.
Sorry, again,
Yeah.
that's very important to say that when Ognjen and Finspot approached to us, they only had how to say, first couple steps covered. They had a problem and they said, we want to solve it with the hash functions. But it was very important to discuss among every player in the field, in the market, what of the data should be checked. And that was the first very important step. And the very important question was what to do when we find a match. Because when you find a match, as Ognjen said, we had 5 keys. It doesn't mean that that's a fraud. That's just a single signal, red flag. And it was a very hard discussion what to do at that point. And we find a solution that we connect only the factoring company who entered the first data and the factoring company who is checking the data. And only they know if there is a matching, and they will discuss in the further talks and checks if it is a real fraud or not.
Yeah, that was important, that they get to choose what to do with that information, right? They can just consider it as something which is not a fraud, and they can just continue, or they can really act upon it. And what was also one benefit for the whole market that came out of this exercise is that, at least from our point, is that the factoring companies started to talk to each other much more about the needs to communicate and the needs to have this kind of a platform where you can actually exchange information in a confidential manner, because it helps everybody. And the other thing that helped quite a lot to have it quickly on a national level is that because of the way that Whisper is implemented, because nothing leaves the system of the party who is doing the check, it means that it's easily to get compliance from your legal team, for example, and it's easy to get compliance from your IT team, who can just verify that really the signature cannot be reversed, right? So you don't need to go through these loops of trying to get compliance, which can take ages, especially for big systems. And yeah, still as we speak, some of the banks are implementing integration with Whisper, and we expect this year that we have everybody on board fully, which is then going to be just provide the full power of the solution. I would just want to conclude before we go into questions is why is Whisper interesting as a solution for especially this kind of problem where you have multiple different parties and interest. It's this simplicity of implementation. So nothing sensitive leaves your system. Nobody can tell anything from the fingerprint. And the whole hashing function, it's really a standard piece of software that you can implement quickly. This implementation does not require much of your IT, of your other resources, so you can quickly integrate with it. It gives you, with multiple fingerprints, it gives you this flexibility that you can stop fraudsters who are a little bit more advanced or more experienced. So even if they try various combinations of invoices, you can still catch the main points or to see if an invoice was duplicated. The the participants of the process, they can agree on which kind of document types they want to support. So we started in Serbia with invoices, but you can easily include any other kind of document because it's the same technology, right? You just take some metadata from a document and you cache it, and then that's it. That's the unique identifier. So it doesn't have to be only the invoice. What we did with Whisper as Finspot in Serbia is we realized that the best way to have it used by the whole market is to go to an institution that everybody trusts, right? Although you're not revealing any information, people are suspicious by nature, right? And if we were to come up as a private company and try to apply this solution, not sure that we would be able to do it that quickly. But if you go to an institution that everybody trusts, things are much easier. And this is why Whisper can be deployed in-house, white labeled completely. So in an institution or private entity or whoever in a given market has trust, or it can also be provided as a cloud-based solution, which is on our infrastructure that does the same thing more or less. In the demo I showed you, so we were, as we discussed in Serbian Chamber of Commerce with all the factoring players, how best to implement this. You see various differences, right? You see shops that are doing like, I don't know, 50 invoices a month, and that can do everything manually, and they don't have tech capabilities. And on the other side, you can have banks that have, I don't know, thousands invoices per month or even much more. And this is why we built it in a way that you can use it manually, so through the browser, or that you can do a file upload, or what is best is to use the API integration. So it really fits whatever is in the small shops, but also the bigger players. It fits everybody to everybody's needs. At Finspot, Whisper is completely integrated with our platform, meaning that whenever there is a step which is important, we just trigger an API call to Whisper to check when there is an invoice upload, when there is initial approval, before the final approval is given. So these are just automated checks that will just show an alert if there is a problem. So you don't have any additional steps necessary to perform once you are integrated. And the final point is pricing. So we also decided to make it in a way that small companies have interest in using it, but also bigger ones. So it really depends on how much you're using it, and the more you use, the less you pay per a given document, so that it's a fair distribution, and you pay as you grow. With that, I would like to thank you all for your interest, and Olena, again, thanks for the invitation, and yes, we are open for questions.
You had 2 questions already in the chats.
Yes, thank you very much, Ognjen and Vladimir. And first of all, congratulations on the implementations, because it really looks like the ideal solution, that everybody on the market have one centralized platform, have real-time access, and then it serves a lot of questions. But I think you are the only example on the market in Europe, I would say. And let's discuss that. I have also many questions to you. While I was listening, I thought of some, but let's first start from our attendees. Marta asks 2 questions. Thank you very much, Marta. So first is it really not possible to reverse the signature to particular data, for example, registration number of the party issuing the invoice? Is it?
Yeah, that's the function which is being used for hashing. It's called SHA-256, SHA-256, and it's just an industry standard. So you can look it up online if you want, or you can ask somebody from IT to look it up online and to check. But once you hash it, it's impossible. I mean, you would need, as I mentioned, you would need the compute of the whole world running for 1 million years to be able to reverse it back. So it's considered impossible, right? And we wanted to use something which is completely standard, that everybody knows, so that you don't need to ask to check any additional questions once you see which hashing algorithm is being used.
All right. The next question is, how many potential frauds were discovered since implementation?
I already said that fortunately none. Fortunately none. But as I said, these type of frauds are not very often, but they can be very hard. So
we know.
one fraud can make a live or die moment for a small company.
Sure.
Yeah. In our case, so that was in September 2022. That's the last attempt that we know of. It was an attempt of 20,000 euros. Before that, we know of an example of a Serbian bank that was defrauded like this for the amount of 150,000 euros. These are the cases that we know about that are like public, so to say. We talk openly about the attempt on our platform. As Vladimir said, they are not often, but once they happen, they can be really considerable. So that's why it makes sense to have something like this in place to prevent it.
All right. My question to you will be, the first one is, when you presented the demo, how the system looks like, you mentioned about the e-invoicing system implemented in Serbia, this mandatory one. And my question to you is, because here, we know that in the European Union, it's becoming mandatory during next, let's say, 2-3 years. Some countries implemented already, some countries implemented this year, some countries next year, and many of them and many factors actually rely on that mandatory invoice system in the sense of the check of double finance front as well. So as you mentioned, as I understood, this doesn't work this way in Serbia. So you needed this platform as add-on, as additional tool to this mandatory e-invoicing.
Yeah. When we were discussing implementing this tool, when we presented it for the first time, when we talked about it together, the e-invoicing platform was already in the making. It was supposed to hit production in 2 months, and it did. But the issue was that they didn't support the case of factoring at all from the get-go. And we had a lot of discussions in the association about, okay, but this will soon become obsolete because of the invoicing platform. So that e-invoicing platform is now live for 1.5 years almost, and they don't have any indications that they're going to support factoring. So you can rely on that, but it's not that these platforms are extremely big projects which have a lot of dependencies, and they do not move fast. And if you need to wait 5 years for them to implement it, it's better to have something that you can quickly protect yourself. And then you can easily switch to that if this proves to be obsolete.
If I may add, I don't know how this would work through this government platform, because it would be open data. You will see who the client is, this platform has this secret function, how to say it.
And do these all checks concern the domestic factoring or the international factoring as well, meaning that the buyer and the customer on the invoice should be both the Serbian companies, or they can be also one of them could be also as a
from abroad.
Let's say from abroad.
It covers both cases.
Both cases. Oh.
What we started initially. What was the agreement? Let's cover Serbia. Let's start with that, and then we add features as we go. It's as simple as adding a currency, right, to the invoice. So, for example, if you're talking about Serbia, where one debtor is outside, but that's a good point. What's important there is that if you have multiple Whisper instances in multiple countries, then they can talk together and you can have cross-border protection. And Whisper can also talk to other providers that exist on the market. So if there is a provider that covers, I don't know, Italy, for example, we can talk to them to also provide cross-border. But for us, the first thing was, okay, let's focus to have the solution in Serbia, and then let's move from there.
Yeah, sure.
Expand.
How in Serbia, how you implemented in Serbia? Is it a cloud solution hosted by the Chamber of Commerce, or this is in-house solution hosted by the Chamber of Commerce, or how does it technically work? And how
cloud solution, And the legal framework is that we got a license, and all the banks and factory companies is signing agreement with us, so they can approach to the platform. They got their AP and everything, AP key and everything.
And you mentioned also about the pricing. So what is the model? So whether there's this an annual payment or agreement, or it's paid invoice by invoice, and is this kind of subscription?
Maybe Serbia is not such a good example for that. As I said, in Serbia, all legal entities are mandatory members of the Serbia Chamber of Commerce. So we provide a lot of services in not such a commercial way. We don't have a commercial obligation we have a better to say we have an obligation to work as much to make market better and safer.
All right. So does this mean that the factors are obliged to join this platform?
No, not at this point. But if it make an effect in next legal changes, maybe we will think to propose that to the state, but that's such a on the long stick. It's an open question. They're not obliged, but we are promoting as much as we can.
Yeah.
And there was an interesting proposal from one of the members of the association who is using Whisper and who was previously also had a fraud attempt. For fraud targets, exactly. So just give me a second, sorry. So what he proposed was, let's make an agreement among us in the association that if I finance an invoice that it turns out to be duplicate and I did a check through Whisper, then the factoring company that initially financed without adding the invoice to Whisper should pay my default, which is quite an interesting proposal, but it's not something that we are not obliged by law. So it's up to the people to organize. And coming back to your pricing model. So the best way we see it is through the way how you use it, right? So if you're a small shop, you do up to, I don't know, 200 invoices, you pay certain price per invoice. And then if you go above that, you start paying less amount per invoice, right? So we want to, because you want to have everybody involved. And just given on what FinSpot's loss was on this fraud, it's like, yeah, you can probably pay, if you're a small shop, you can pay like 5 to 10 years of Whisper and for that loss. So it makes sense to use something like this. And then it's charged monthly or probably monthly because you grow through the months, right?
All right, and probably last question from my side. How do you see, Ognjen, probably you mainly, that the Whisper can be implemented in different countries? I mean, let's say in Europe. Let's start from our region. So how do you see? Do you see that it should be hosted by a separate association, organization, club in each and every country, or can it be done via one centralized association for all the countries? How do you see it? I mean, technically and practically, because what you did, this is really very quick process that you told about. I know, in several countries in the CE, like similar platforms, not like yours, but with the similar idea, to have it centralized and checked, have been developed for years and not yet implemented. So it really takes like a lot of time. And what you are saying, like several months, even 3, even 6 months, this is a very quick implementation. So what should be the background probably for that from your experience? And how do you see this country by country distribution?
Yeah, we discussed that a lot. I think that definitely one way is to find a institution that everybody trusts, but then inside of that institution you need to have people who are willing to work on it, like Vladimir and his team, because they need to understand what's the value that's being given to the market. So what we are trying to do in different countries is also to talk to associations and to talk to entities like this. And then once you get into the position where you can present to somebody, what was extremely important is to involve everybody immediately. So everybody that's sitting on the table, because once that people feel that they're part of the process, it's not something that's coming from the outside, it's much easier, right? And I think that creating the test group, the thing that we did in Serbia, was instrumental. So you immediately had a few banks and companies that were involved weekly in testing the application, and this proved to be, they were the drivers on then giving it to everybody else. So this combination
and they have a feeling that they make a process that like they are also creators, and they are.
Yes, because they are, exactly.
Because when Ognjen approached to us, we organized that first meeting very soon, in a couple of days, and it was good that we proposed the open idea to everybody. We have an open discussion on that first meeting, and it was like brainstorming, and it showed the result because people felt involved.
The other option is also to try what we also discussed, is that we as FinSpot would provide infrastructure cloud-based, and then everybody would talk to us. But the issue there is that you have a lot of, especially with people who don't have any technical background, they're suspicious. Naturally, they're suspicious. So I'm sending data to somebody else. And if it's cross-border, then it's probably a bigger issue. So currently, I think that it makes more sense that every national market has its own solution, Whisper or something else, no matter what. And then on top of that, you have a framework where they communicate together to enable cross-border. But I mean, we are in exploratory mode as well. So let's see. It really depends from market to market. And what's good about it is, maybe to conclude with this, if there is an institution in a given market, it's good if they can also profit from it, but also give value to the market. If you can find this motivation for this, so it's like association of banks, for example. That's a potentially good target. They can also make some profit, which can make their association continue working, and they're providing value to the bank, to the market. So they're fulfilling their purpose.
Find Vladimir in every association.
Final question from Marta: how many factoring providers you have in Serbia? 20, right? You mentioned 20.
It's around
20. Around 20.
All right. Thank you very much, Ognjen and Vladimir, for sharing your experience, and sharing how it can be done. And this is an example here for our region and for the market. And thank you, our attendees. Please let us know what you think about such a solution. Because we were glad to also present it within VOA Digital, and we are really eager to test this. Give you the value. Will you be interested to discuss it more? Because if yes, then we of course can go into more deep discussion, country by country, or with one factoring company, or with a group of factoring companies, and and try to develop this further. So thank you very much. Next time we will see you in April on our VOA Digital Conference. It will be in Warsaw on April 23, and also we will have a live streaming. So if you are not able to come to Warsaw, please watch us online and register on our website. And then the next webinar will be held in May. So thank you very much, and see you next time. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you so much. See you. Bye bye.